If you are a romantasy reader, get excited because this week I'm going to be reading Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Have I read the Caraval series yet? No. But I have been assured by multiple people that that is not going to present a problem for me when reading this series. So we're gonna see if they were right. This book is so Sabrina Carpenter coded. Our main character, Evangeline, has had her heart viciously heartbroken. Viciously. The guy who she thought was her one true love has decided to propose to her stepsister instead. And she doesn't know why. She thinks the only explanation is that her stepsister has put him under a curse because she just knows they were meant to be together. So, in an attempt to save him, she goes to basically like this temple of the Prince of Hearts. And the Prince of Hearts is a fate, which I'm kind of imagining as like a Greek god sort of figure because they're sort of mythical, legendary beings that have like magical powers and they each are kind of in charge of a certain thing. And so the Prince of Hearts is the fate of like broken-hearted people. And everybody knows that you're not supposed to seek out the fates for help because they always end up taking way more than they give. But Evangeline is so heartbroken that she has to come and find him. And if all of that does not scream all because I liked a boy, like I don't even know. I honestly don't think I've ever related to a main character in a fantasy story more than Evangeline. She basically looks at life like a story and she feels like she's destined for some great ending. I feel like that's always how I've looked at my life. Because I'm a Christian, I kind of see it like I'm the main character and God's writing the story. He's pushing me towards some like epic ending. Like there's something much bigger at play than what I can like see right in front of me. And that's a little bit scary, but also kind of exciting. And I feel like that is a lot of what Evangeline is kind of trying to say. Okay, it's official. I have a new favorite fictional nickname. Up until this very moment, my favorite was definitely what Jameson called Avery in the Inheritance games. He always called her Eris. That's so cute, but this one is better. So in this story, Evangeline is like obsessed with fairy tales. She's a die-hard hopeless romantic, and her favorite fairy tale is one called The Archer and the Fox. And it's basically this story where this guy who's an archer is chasing this fox, but then it turns out that the fox that he's hunting is actually a woman and she can like shapeshift, and he falls in love with this woman. And there's different versions of the story, and in one version he's cursed to hunt the fox forever until he kills her, but then in the other version he breaks the curse and he falls in love with her and they get a happy ending. And you don't really know which one is like the real account. So because that is Evangeline's favorite fairy tale, Jax starts calling her Little Fox. Like he never ever says her actual name. He always calls her Little Fox. It's so cute. Okay, so I was taking a break from reading for a bit and I was scrolling through Pinterest and I found this really cute tutorial for these like origami heart bookmarks. And I personally have never really been someone who like has cute bookmarks. You know, I'm not one of those girlies. I'm more of a receipt girly. But I would kind of like to become a cute bookmark girly. So I'm going to switch over to the audiobook of Once Upon a Broken Heart for now and just kind of like show you, like, I don't know, we'll see if this works. Nobody told me there were vampires in this. Jax and Eva are officially on the run. Like, they are fugitives from the law now. They're on their way to go meet a new fate named Chaos, hoping that he can help them. And he also just happens to be a vampire. I don't really understand if he's like a fate who is also a vampire, or if he's like the fate of vampires or of immortality. Honestly, who am I kidding? I do not care. They're going to his secret underground vampire lair in the middle of a cemetery. I should have read this book much, much sooner. Did anybody else see Jungkook's Calvin Klein ad? So I just finished book 1, Once Upon a Broken Heart. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, so you don't have to worry about that. But all I will say, the ending is so favorite crime coded by Olivia Rodrigo. Like, my jaw almost fell on the floor. It was just, it lines up with those lyrics way too perfectly. Which honestly, if you have a book that starts Sabrina coded and ends Olivia coded, you're doing pretty well. Like, that's a pretty good book in my opinion. I still can't believe there were vampires though, and nobody told me. And not like a little reference to vampires existing in the world or whatever, but like one of the biggest supporting characters is the Lord of the Vampires. And like the coolest part of the book was when we got to go explore his like secret underground vampire lair, and they had to escape all of those newborns. Like, that was so cool. That was my favorite part, for sure. One thing I will say is like, so many people are like obsessed with Evangeline and Jax's relationship, and I loved them like as individual characters, but there wasn't necessarily a ton of romance in this book. And when I say not really a ton, I mean there really wasn't any. They hated each other at the start of the book, and they hate each other at the end of the book. So I'm really hoping that Stephanie like amps up the romance in book 2, because like I was very excited for like an epic enemies to lovers love story, and this really wasn't a love story. It was a fairy tale, but not like a love story. Speaking of which, this is very much a book that you read for the atmosphere and for the characters. The character development was really cool. I love Evangeline as a main character, and I found out, so you know there's that app where you can go and like check out fictional characters MBTI, like personality type, and I discovered that Evangeline has my type, which is INFP. Not to like brag or anything, but that definitely made me feel like a main character. But yeah, the fairy tale vibes in this book were so cool. It's genuinely a book that I would say I wish I could live in, because the aesthetic and like all of the Pinterest boards that people make for these books, they are so magical. It's like kind of Alice in Wonderland vibes, but with more color. Like Alice in Wonderland is very black, white, and red, whereas I was picturing lots of like pinks and blues and purples, like really pretty soft pastel colors, very much like Disney World and Cinderella's castle and stuff, which was so fun. Honestly, sometimes you just need to be transported into a world like that and kind of reminded of that sort of magic and wonderful feeling. One thing though, when it comes to the world building, is it did get a little convoluted at times. Like the stuff with like the history of the Fates and the Valeries and stuff, she definitely lost me at certain points. So I don't know if that's because I just didn't read Carval and maybe she went over it in more detail in those books. But that was honestly the only part where I even considered like, oh, maybe I should have read Carval first. Like for the most part, it didn't really seem like you needed to read those books. But now I'm kind of thinking maybe I will read them because I am liking this story and her like storytelling style. So I did go ahead and get book 2, The Ballad of Never After. I did briefly consider waiting until closer to when book 3 comes out to start this one. But then I was like, nah, we're just gonna go for it. So there's a possibility that if I really love this book, I may really regret reading it this soon before book 3 comes out. We'll see. But what I'm looking for in this book is, I guess, just more romantic development. Like, I love the world, I love the characters, everything is set up perfectly, and now I just need some romance. Like, hopefully we get at least like a teeny tiny little shred of romance, because man, she was really starving us in that first book. Even when you thought, oh, they finally, you know, bridged the gap or like broken down this wall a tiny little bit, nope, it just went right back up in the next chapter. So we'll see. Okay, this is so random, but does anybody know if you can like twist up these NYX lip liners? Because surely there's more than just the little tip that was like already out, but I don't know if I'm just being dumb, but like I can't figure it out. And I'm an engineer, so this is a really humbling moment for me. If you happen to have that information, please tell me in the comments, because this is my favorite lip liner, but there's gotta be more in here. Okay, makeup's done. I'm gonna take some Instagram pictures, and then we're gonna start reading The Ballad of Never After. Lala is my new favorite character. Like, I loved her in book 1, but Lala in The Ballad of Never After is just exquisite. She's actually engaged for like the 100th time. So she's throwing a ball at her fiance's house, and Jax and Eva are invited, and they're going as a date, which like that is a whole thing in and of itself that I don't even have time to go into. So it's kind of like a costume ball, and everyone is like dressed up as different animals or different characters, and Lala comes in with this stunning dress that it says is kind of like meant to look like dragon scales on the fabric. And so for that, I immediately had this picture of that gown that Gigi Hadid wore to the Met Ball like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I know you know which one I'm talking about because it is one of the most stunning dresses any of us have ever seen in our lives. It was the year that they did like the Catholic Church theme, so I think it was meant to be more like stained glass panels, but it's also very reminiscent of dragon scales, and it is perfect for this like idea, this vibe. Somebody needs to do one of those edits where they flip through like every single time that a certain word is used in a book, and they need to do it to every single time Jax calls Evangeline Little Fox, because I would consume that content. This series is giving off strong Vampire Diaries vibes, like now that I'm really thinking about it, because my girl Stephanie has just pulled out a trope that is so niche, and for some reason I am completely obsessed with it, and that is when character A is like connected somehow to character B, so that whatever happens to one happens to the other. So that is obviously reminiscent of one of the best episodes in TV history, which is the Masquerade Ball episode in season 2 with Catherine and Elena being connected, and Damon and Stefan like think that they have her trapped and they're finally gonna be rid of her, and then Jeremy or Bonnie or somebody rushes in, they're like, no, 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 whatever you're doing, just Catherine is happening to Elena, you're hurting Elena. Ah! I don't know why that hits so hard for me, but that episode is so good. And now Stephanie has pulled out that very same trope, and I won't give away which characters are connected because, you know, I'm trying to keep this spoiler free, but oh my goodness. I'm definitely enjoying book 2 a lot more than book 1. Not that I hated book 1 or anything, but for me, book 1 was more about like the vibes and just the overall aesthetic of like the fairy tale world and all the costumes and the cool places. And I wasn't really as invested in the plot, whereas book 2 is like, I am gripped. I'm like gripping the pages. Plus we're getting a lot more interactions with Jax and Eva, and like you're finally starting to see just like the teeniest, tiniest hints of romance, and I'm so excited. Hey Siri, how many days until September 12th?
It's 166 days.
Why did I do this to myself? I have finished the first 2 books in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and now I have that many days to wait until the final book comes out, and I'm gonna go crazy! Book 2, so much better than book 1. And I liked book 1. Book 1 had really good characters, really good world building, the vibes were all there. But book 2 had the romance. So I said that the end of book 1 was very Favorite Crime by Olivia Rodrigo coded. The end of this book is That's the Way I Loved You by Taylor Swift coded. I now understand why Stephanie Garber waited so long to shift from enemies to lovers in Eva and Jax's relationship, because she had to lay that foundation, right? Like, she had to make us understand just how much these two characters could not stand each other. So that in book 2, when like they would say something and they would do something, you're like, wait, do they not hate each other? Do they not hate each other? It was like a really big deal. I have always been a huge friends to lovers stan, but this series may have converted me. Also, I am starting a petition to have the 3rd book be dual POV between Evangeline and Jax, because the first 2 books, I mean, technically it's told in like a 3rd person perspective, but it's really Evangeline's point of view. But because of the way that the 2nd book ended, it would be so much better if we got it from also Jax's point of view in book 3, and I know that's probably not going to happen. But if this series has taught me anything, is that a girl can dream. These are like characters that I don't want to say goodbye to. And I mean, like, I know that they're going to be back in September, but I don't know, it just, I want to go back. I want to go back. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a fun time. This was a huge emotional roller coaster, so I hope that was entertaining. Let me know down in the comments if you have read this series and what your thoughts are, because I need to discuss it with somebody. And as always, please let me know if there's any way I can be encouraging you or praying for you this week. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye.